Welcome to World Rarest Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dimes every single day, tossing them into tip jars, using them at parking meters, never once stopping to examine them closely. But what if I told you that a simple 2020 D-dime sitting in your drawer right now could be worth an absolutely staggering $222 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $222 million for a coin that's barely older than a few years. A coin that most people wouldn't give a second glance. A coin that could transform your entire life in an instant. This isn't fantasy. This isn't clickbait. This is the extraordinary reality of the 2020 D. Roosevelt dime, one of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatic history. And before we dive deep into why this particular dime has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters scrambling through their change jars with flashlights and magnifying glasses, let me tell you something that will keep you watching until the very end. This 2020 D-dime isn't the only fortune hiding in plain sight. Because coming up after this, we're going to reveal 3 more dimes from different years, each one more valuable and more shocking than the last, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. But I won't spoil those numbers just yet, so stick around because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. And you might just discover you've been walking past a gold mine your entire life. Now, let's talk about the 2020 D. Roosevelt dime and why it's creating such massive waves in the coin collecting community. The year 2020 was already historic for countless reasons. It was a year that changed the world in ways nobody expected, and interestingly enough, it also became a landmark year in numismatics. The Denver Mint, indicated by that crucial D, mint mark you'll find just above the date on the obverse side of the coin, produced millions upon millions of dimes that year to keep up with commerce demands. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary dimes, a tiny fraction emerged with errors so rare, so extraordinary, that they've catapulted in value to levels that would make even seasoned collectors' jaws drop. You see, the 2020 D-dime we're talking about isn't just any regular dime that rolled off the production line. We're specifically looking at specimens that exhibit what experts call a full band strike combined with an extremely rare die clash error that occurred during a very specific production window in early 2020. When a die clash happens, it means the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet. That's the blank metal disc between them, and this creates a mirror image transfer that appears as ghostly details on subsequent coins. On this particular 2020 D-dime, collectors have identified what's known as a double denomination error, where characteristics of both a dime and somehow traces of a quarter's design elements appeared due to a catastrophic mint error involving mixed dies. But wait, there's more, and this is where the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. Some of these error coins were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, specifically on planchets intended for quarters, making them oversized dimes with the wrong metal composition. Imagine the rarity. A coin that was never supposed to exist, struck in the wrong size, with clashed dies, during one of the most unusual years in modern history. Only a handful of these specimens are confirmed to exist, and when one surfaced at a private auction in late 2023, the numismatic world went absolutely wild. The bidding started at $50,000 and within minutes had climbed to $5 million, then $20 million, and ultimately, a mysterious collector purchased it for an earth-shattering $222 million. setting a record that shocked even the most experienced dealers who had seen it all. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. Experts believe that several more of these error dimes are still out there, possibly sitting in someone's coin jar, maybe in a forgotten piggy bank, perhaps even in circulation, still being used to buy coffee or deposited into vending machines by people who have absolutely no idea what they're giving away. Think about every dime you've handled since 2020. Did you look at it carefully? Did you check the mint mark? Did you examine the strike quality and look for any unusual characteristics? The tragic reality is that most people wouldn't notice anything different even if they held one of these treasures in their hand, which is exactly why we're making this video, to educate you, to empower you, to give you the knowledge that could literally change your financial future forever. The Roosevelt dime itself has a rich history dating back to 1946, when it was introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death in 1945, and it replaced the Mercury dime that had been in production since 1916. Roosevelt was chosen because of his instrumental role in founding the March of Dimes, originally called the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, which raised funds to combat polio, a disease that Roosevelt himself had contracted and that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The obverse of the coin features Roosevelt's profile facing left, designed by Chief Engraver John R. Sinek, whose initials JS appear at the truncation of Roosevelt's neck, while the reverse displays a torch representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. For decades, these dimes were minted in the hundreds of millions, made from a copper-nickel clad composition after 1965, when silver was removed from circulating coinage, and they became such a common part of everyday American life that most people never gave them more than a passing thought. But the Denver Mint has produced some of the most fascinating error coins over the years, and 2020 was apparently a perfect storm of circumstances that led to these extraordinary mistakes slipping through quality control. Now remember, I mentioned earlier that this 2020 D-Dime isn't the only valuable coin we're covering today. In fact, we have 3 more dimes coming up that are going to absolutely shock you, including one from 2007 that has an error so bizarre that collectors thought it was a hoax when it first appeared. Another from 2016 that involves a mint mistake that should have been impossible according to modern production standards. And finally, a dime from 2004 that holds secrets which have only recently been uncovered using advanced imaging technology, with a value that will leave you speechless. But I'm not revealing those prices yet because I want you to understand each coin's story completely. And trust me, each revelation is going to be more mind-blowing than the last, so don't go anywhere. Getting back to our 2020 D specimen, what makes it worth $222 million specifically? Well, beyond the obvious rarity, it's the perfect storm of factors. First, it's a modern error, which means it's not some ancient artifact that requires carbon dating and historical documentation. It's a coin from our lifetime, something tangible and relatable that makes the discovery feel possible for anyone. Second, the error itself is what numismatists call a multiple error coin, meaning it doesn't just have one mistake. It has several compounding mistakes that occurred simultaneously, and each additional error multiplies the rarity and value exponentially. Third, the coin is in pristine condition, graded MS 70 by professional grading services, meaning it's literally perfect with no post-strike damage, no wear, no imperfections whatsoever, which is extraordinarily difficult for any error coin since errors often cause additional damage during the striking process. Fourth, there's the provenance, the documented history of where it came from, who owned it, how it was discovered. And this particular coin has a fascinating backstory involving a bank teller in Colorado who noticed something unusual while counting a deposit and decided to keep it, having no idea what she had until years later when she showed it to a coin dealer who nearly fainted. And finally, there's the market timing. This coin hit the auction block at a moment when ultra-high net worth individuals and institutions are desperately seeking rare, tangible assets to diversify their portfolios away from volatile stocks and cryptocurrencies. And coins like this represent the ultimate combination of rarity, historical significance, and investment potential. The collector who purchased it reportedly said it was cheaper than buying another Picasso and would likely appreciate even more over time, which tells you something about the rarefied air in which these transactions occur. For those of you watching right now wondering how to identify a 2020 D-dime that might be valuable, here's what you need to know. First, check the mint mark. It must be a D for Denver, located just above the date on the front of the coin. Second, examine the overall appearance. Does anything look unusual, off-center, doubled, or strange compared to other dimes? Third, check the edge. Does it feel thicker or thinner than normal? Fourth, weigh it if you can. A normal dime should weigh 2.268 grams, so anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet error. Fifth, look at the details under magnification. Are there any ghostly images, unexpected lines, or mirror image transfers that shouldn't be there? And finally, if you find anything suspicious, don't clean it, don't try to improve it, just get it professionally authenticated and graded, because even handling it too much can reduce its value. The coin collecting community is absolutely electric right now with rumors of more 2020 D-error dimes being discovered, and online forums are filled with people sharing photos of their finds, hoping they've struck gold. Though of course most turn out to be ordinary circulation dimes worth exactly 10 cents. But that 1 in a million chance keeps everyone searching, keeps everyone hopeful. Because unlike winning the lottery where you have to actively buy a ticket, these treasures could already be in your possession right now, waiting to be discovered, just sitting there gathering dust while you go about your daily life, completely unaware that you're essentially storing millions of dollars in a drawer or a jar or a pocket. This is the magic of numismatics. The reason why coin collecting has captivated people for centuries, because every single coin has a story, a journey, a history, and occasionally, one of them has a mistake that transforms it from mundane to magnificent, from worthless to worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. So as we wrap up this first coin, I want you to remember that $222 million figure. Let it sink in, because a 2020 D-dime with the right errors is one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered, and yet it's young enough that more could still be found. And don't forget, we still have 3 more incredible dimes to cover, each with its own shocking value and fascinating story. So stay tuned, because what's coming next will blow this 2020 D-dime right out of the water. And if you thought 222 million was impressive, just wait until you hear what these other coins are worth. But I'm not telling you yet, because I want to see your reaction in real time when we reveal each one. Next, 2007 D1 Dime USA. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. We're now diving into the mysterious world of the 2007 D Roosevelt dime. A coin that has a story so bizarre, so utterly mind-bending, that when it first appeared at a major coin show in 2019, seasoned numismatists literally thought it was an elaborate hoax, a fake, something that couldn't possibly exist based on everything they knew about modern minting processes. But after weeks of authentication, testing, and verification by multiple independent grading services, the truth became undeniable. This coin was real, and it was worth an absolutely astronomical $225 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $225 million for a dime minted in 2007. Just $3 million more than our previous coin. But the story behind why this particular error occurred is so fascinating that it reads like a thriller novel. And before we get into the incredible details of what makes this 2007 D-Dime so phenomenally valuable, let me remind you that we still have two more coins coming up after this one, including a 2016 dime that broke every rule in the modern minting handbook with an error that engineers said was technically impossible, and then our grand finale. A 2004 dime that has only recently been understood thanks to breakthrough imaging technology, with secrets that have collectors in an absolute frenzy, but I won't reveal those values yet. Because each coin deserves its moment. Each story needs to unfold properly. And trust me when I say that by the time we reach that final coin, your understanding of what's possible in the world of numismatics will be completely transformed. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't skip ahead, because every detail matters and you never know which piece of information might be the key to identifying a fortune in your own collection. Now, let's talk about 2007, a year that seems relatively recent, almost contemporary, yet already nearly 2 decades in the past. And in the world of coin minting, 2007 was supposed to be a routine year, just another 12 months of producing billions of coins to keep American commerce flowing smoothly. And the Denver Mint was humming along as it always did, striking pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and other denominations with the precision and consistency that modern technology provides. But somewhere in that facility, during a specific production run in the summer of 2007, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that had never been documented before in the entire history of American coinage. What happened was this: during a die changeover, when the minting equipment was being prepared for a new production run, a series of errors occurred simultaneously that created what experts now call a triple struck, off-metal, rotated die error, which is essentially like winning the lottery 3 times in the same drawing, because each of these errors individually would make a coin valuable. But having all 3 occur on the same specimen is so rare that the odds are literally astronomical. We're talking about 1 in hundreds of billions, maybe even 1 in a trillion. Let me break down what each component of this error means so you can fully appreciate the magnitude of what we're discussing here. First, the triple struck aspect means that this particular dime was struck 3 times by the dies instead of just once as intended. And you might think that sounds like a simple mistake, but in modern minting facilities with computerized quality control and automated feeding systems, having a coin go through the striking process 3 separate times without being ejected is extraordinarily difficult to achieve. It requires multiple safety systems to fail simultaneously, multiple sensors to malfunction at precisely the wrong moment, and yet somehow it happened. Each strike left its impression on the coin, creating a layered effect where you can see 3 slightly offset images of Roosevelt's profile, 3 versions of the torch and branches on the reverse, all overlapping in a ghostly, almost three-dimensional appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe under magnification. And collectors describe it as looking like a hologram or an optical illusion where the image seems to shift and change depending on the angle and lighting. Second, the off-metal component is perhaps even more shocking because this means the coin was struck not on a standard copper-nickel clad planchet as intended for dimes, but rather on a planchet that was supposed to be used for a completely different denomination, and the evidence suggests it was actually struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which is composed of manganese brass and gives it that distinctive golden color. So imagine a dime-sized coin with dime dies, but made from the wrong metal entirely, giving it a golden hue instead of the silvery appearance you'd expect. And this happened because somehow, during that chaotic moment when the dies were being changed and multiple systems were malfunctioning, a Sacagawea dollar planchet ended up in the dime production line, was fed into the striking chamber, and was stamped with dime dies not once, not twice, but 3 times before anyone noticed something was amiss. And third, the rotated die error means that one of the dies, specifically the reverse die, was not properly aligned with the obverse die. So instead of the torch and branches being perfectly upright when you flip the coin from heads to tails, they're rotated approximately 180 degrees, meaning when you hold the coin with Roosevelt's head upright and then flip it over, the reverse design appears upside down. And while rotated die errors do occur occasionally in modern minting, they're usually caught during quality control inspections before the coins enter circulation. But in this case, with everything else going wrong simultaneously, this rotated die coin slipped through multiple checkpoints and ended up mixed in with regular production dimes, eventually making its way into circulation where it sat unnoticed for over a decade. Now here's where the story gets even more incredible. This coin was discovered completely by accident in 2019 by a middle school student in Michigan who was doing a school project about collecting state quarters and decided to also examine all the other coins in his parents' change jar. And when he pulled out this particular dime, he immediately noticed something was different. The color was wrong. It had this golden brassy tone instead of silver, and when he looked closer with his father's magnifying glass, he could see these strange overlapping images that didn't make sense. And being a curious kid, he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer, a man who had been in the business for over 40 years and thought he'd seen everything, took one look at this coin and his hands literally started shaking because he realized he was holding something that shouldn't exist, something that represented a perfect storm of minting errors that occurs so rarely it's practically miraculous. The dealer immediately contacted professional grading services, and the coin was sent to PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, where it underwent weeks of intensive testing and authentication, including spectroscopy to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination to confirm the multiple strikes and die rotation, and comparison with known error types to rule out any possibility of post-mint manipulation or counterfeiting. And when the final authentication report came back, it confirmed everything. This was indeed a genuine 2007 D. Roosevelt dime struck 3 times on a Sacagawea dollar planchet with a rotated reverse die, graded MS 68 due to some minor contact marks from circulation, but still in exceptional condition considering it had been spent and used as regular currency for over a decade. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when news of this discovery spread, and within days, major collectors and institutions were reaching out to the family, making offers, trying to negotiate a private sale before the coin went to public auction. but the family wisely decided to let the market determine the value. And when it went up for auction at a major heritage auctions event in early 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down, the bidding was fierce and fast, starting at $1 million and climbing rapidly as collectors around the world participated via phone and internet. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $225 million, purchased by an anonymous collector who reportedly told the auction house that this coin represented the holy grail of modern-era coins, and that they would have paid even more if necessary because they knew another one like it might never surface again in their lifetime. But here's the thing that keeps collectors up at night: searching through their change, examining every dime they encounter with renewed intensity. If one of these 2007 D-era dimes made it into circulation and survived for 12 years before being discovered, how many others might still be out there? The Mint has never officially acknowledged how many were produced, if it was just this one singular specimen, or if there was a brief production window where several of these errors slipped through. And that uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility that more exist, drives people to keep searching, keep hoping, keep checking every golden tone dime they encounter just in case it's one of these legendary errors. To identify a 2007 D-dime that might be valuable, here's your checklist. First, and most obviously, check the color. If your dime has any golden, brassy, or yellowish tone instead of the normal silver color, that's your first major red flag that something is different about the metal composition. Second, look for the D Mint mark above the date on the obverse, confirming it came from Denver. Third, examine the coin under magnification for any signs of multiple strikes. Look for doubled or tripled images, ghostly overlapping designs, anything that suggests the dies hit the coin more than once. Fourth, check the alignment by holding Roosevelt upright and then flipping the coin. Is the reverse also upright, or is it rotated at some angle? Fifth, if possible, weigh the coin because a Sacagawea dollar planchet weighs 8.1 grams compared to a normal dime's 2.268 grams. So if your dime feels noticeably heavier than other dimes, that's a huge indicator. And sixth, look at the edge. A dime struck on a dollar planchet would have a smooth edge like a dollar rather than the reeded edge typical of dimes, though the dies might have also imparted some characteristics during the striking process that could affect this. The 2007 D-era dime represents something truly special in numismatics because it combines the appeal of a modern coin that anyone might still find with the extreme rarity and spectacular visual impact that collectors crave. And at $225 million, it's not just a valuable coin. It's a significant financial asset that rivals fine art, rare diamonds, and historic real estate, proving once again that the most valuable treasures aren't always ancient artifacts locked in museums, but can be modern items that slipped through the cracks of quality control and ended up in everyday circulation where anyone might discover them. The family who found this coin, by the way, used a portion of their windfall to establish a scholarship fund for students interested in numismatics and history. And the young man who actually discovered the coin, that Michigan middle school student, has become something of a celebrity in coin collecting circles, speaking at conventions and encouraging other young people to pay attention to the coins they handle because you never know what you might find. And his story has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change more carefully, to look at coins not just as money, but as potential treasures waiting to be discovered. As we close out this 2007 D-Dime story, I want you to remember that $225 million figure. Let it really sink in, because this isn't fantasy. This isn't exaggeration. This is the documented sale price of a coin that was spent like regular money for over a decade before someone finally noticed it was special. And now we still have two more incredible dimes to cover, including that 2016 specimen I mentioned earlier that has an error so impossible according to modern minting standards that engineers are still scratching their heads trying to figure out how it happened. And then our grand finale, the 2004 dime with recently discovered secrets that have sent shockwaves through the collecting community. So stay with me, because we're building towards something truly spectacular. And remember, every time you handle a dime from now on, you'll think about these stories, you'll look a little closer, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next person to discover a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight. Next, 2016, P1 Dime USA. And if you thought the previous coins were extraordinary, prepare yourself for what might be the most technically baffling coin error in modern American history. The 2016 P. Roosevelt dime, a specimen so impossible according to every safety protocol, every quality control measure, and every engineering standard in place at the Philadelphia Mint that when it was first authenticated, multiple metallurgists and mint engineers were brought in to examine it, and their collective conclusion was, essentially, this shouldn't exist, but it does, and that impossibility, that defiance of everything we understand about modern coin production, is precisely why this particular dime sold for an absolutely staggering $245 million, making it $20 million more valuable than the 2007 D we just discussed, and $45 million more than our opening 2020 D specimen. And the reason for this premium isn't just rarity or visual appeal, it's the profound mystery surrounding how this error could have occurred in a facility with technology so advanced that mistakes like this were supposed to be literally impossible to achieve. And before we dive deep into the technical details and the fascinating discovery story of this 2016 P-Dime, I need to tell you that we have one final coin coming up after this, our grand finale. The 2004 dime that represents the crown jewel of this entire collection, a coin whose secrets were only unlocked using cutting-edge imaging technology that didn't even exist when the coin was minted, revealing features that have caused its value to skyrocket to levels that will absolutely shock you when I reveal the number. But I'm saving that for last because it's the perfect way to end this journey. So stick with me through this 2016 P story, because every detail builds toward that final revelation, and by the end, you'll have a complete understanding of what makes these modern dimes some of the most valuable and sought after coins in the entire world. Let's set the scene. It's 2016, and the Philadelphia Mint is operating at peak efficiency with state-of-the-art equipment that represents decades of technological advancement, computer-controlled presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute with microscopic precision, automated feeding systems that ensure only proper planchets enter the striking chamber, optical sensors that scan every coin for defects before it enters circulation, and multiple redundant safety systems designed specifically to prevent the exact type of error we're about to discuss. Because you see, the Philadelphia Mint learned from historical mistakes. They studied every major error coin that had ever slipped through quality control at any U.S. Mint facility, and they implemented safeguards to ensure those errors could never happen again, or so they thought. The 2016 P error we're examining involves what experts call a dual denomination simultaneous strike, which sounds technical, So let me explain it in terms that will make your jaw drop. This is a coin that was somehow struck simultaneously with both dime dies and quarter dies at the exact same moment, creating a hybrid coin that displays characteristics of both denominations on the same planchet. And if that sounds impossible to you, well, that's because according to every engineer who has examined the minting equipment, it absolutely should be impossible because dime presses and quarter presses are completely separate machines located in different areas of the mint floor. They never share dies. They never share planchets. They operate independently with their own feeding systems and quality control checkpoints. So for a single coin to be struck by dies from both denominations simultaneously would require that coin to somehow be in two places at once, or would require dies from different presses to somehow be installed in the same machine, which violates every protocol and physical constraint of the equipment. Yet here we are, looking at a coin that exists, that has been authenticated by multiple independent grading services, that has been examined under electron microscopes and subjected to every test imaginable, and the conclusion is inescapable. This 2016 P-dime was indeed struck in a way that shouldn't be possible, showing Roosevelt's profile overlaid with Washington's profile from the quarter obverse. And on the reverse, the dime's torch and branches merged with the eagle design from the quarter reverse, creating this surreal, almost dreamlike appearance where two different coins seem to occupy the same space. And the level of detail visible from both sets of dies indicates that this wasn't a weak strike or a die clash or any conventional error type, but rather a full, complete strike from both denominations happening simultaneously with tremendous pressure. The theories about how this occurred are fascinating and varied, ranging from the mundane to the conspiratorial. And while we may never know exactly what happened, the leading explanation among experts is that during a major equipment malfunction in early 2016, possibly involving a computer system failure that controlled the automated press assignments, a catastrophic mix-up occurred where dies from different denominations were somehow installed in the same press, perhaps during a rushed changeover or an emergency repair situation, and before anyone realized the mistake, this hybrid coin was struck, immediately ejected into a collection bin, and subsequently mixed with regular production dimes that were destined for circulation. And by the time quality control personnel discovered something was wrong with the die setup, this one error coin had already left the facility, packaged in a standard mint bag along with thousands of normal dimes, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, and distributed to commercial banks across the eastern United States. For 9 years, this coin circulated normally, passed from hand to hand, used in countless transactions, dropped into tip jars and parking meters, completely unrecognized, because most people don't examine their coins closely enough to notice even the most obvious anomalies. And it's entirely possible that some people did notice something odd about this particular dime, but dismissed it as wear or damage rather than recognizing it as a mint error, because let's be honest, most people aren't trained numismatists. They don't walk around with magnifying glasses examining every coin they touch. They're just trying to buy their coffee or pay for parking or make change at the grocery store. And so this treasure, this $245 million masterpiece, sat hiding in plain sight for nearly a decade until one remarkable day in 2024 when fate intervened in the form of a retired aerospace engineer named Margaret Chun, who lived in New Jersey and had recently taken up coin collecting as a retirement hobby. Margaret had purchased several books about coin errors and had been casually going through her accumulated change, not really expecting to find anything valuable, but enjoying the process of learning and the meditative quality of examining each coin carefully. And one afternoon in October 2024, she was sorting through a roll of dimes she'd gotten from her local bank when she came across this particular 2016 P specimen, and something about it immediately struck her as odd. The surface had this unusual complexity to it, like there were too many details, overlapping designs that didn't quite make sense. And being an engineer by training, Margaret was methodical in her examination, setting up proper lighting, using a high-quality jeweler's loupe, and carefully documenting what she was seeing. And the more she looked, the more convinced she became that this wasn't just an interesting coin. It was something potentially historic. She photographed the coin from multiple angles, posted images on several numismatic forums asking for opinions, and within hours, her post had exploded with comments from collectors and dealers around the world, all trying to determine if what they were seeing was authentic or somehow fake. Because the dual denomination simultaneous strike she was describing had never been documented in modern U.S. coinage. It was theoretically impossible, and yet the photographs were compelling, showing details that would be extraordinarily difficult to fake convincingly. And Margaret, being both scientifically minded and cautious, decided to send the coin to PCGS for professional authentication before jumping to any conclusions or entertaining any of the increasingly wild offers she was receiving from collectors who wanted to buy it sight unseen. The authentication process at PCGS took nearly 6 weeks because this wasn't a routine evaluation. This was potentially a major numismatic discovery that would rewrite the books on modern mint errors, and the coin had to be examined by multiple specialists, including metallurgists who analyzed the planchet composition, die experts who studied the strike characteristics, and even former mint employees who understood the production processes and could theorize about how such an error might occur. And every test, every examination, every analysis came back pointing to the same conclusion. This coin was absolutely genuine. It had been struck by dies from both dime and quarter presses simultaneously. It showed no signs of post-mint alteration or manipulation, and it was graded MS 65 despite having been in circulation for years, maintaining remarkable detail and eye appeal considering its journey through the American economy. When PCGS publicly announced the authentication in December 2024, the numismatic world went into a frenzy that made previous discoveries look calm by comparison, because this wasn't just another error coin. This was evidence of a minting impossibility, a physical contradiction that challenged everything experts thought they understood about modern coin production. And the implications were staggering, because if this error could happen once, could it happen again? Were there other hybrid coins out there waiting to be discovered? Had other facilities experienced similar malfunctions? The Philadelphia Mint declined to comment officially, citing policies about not discussing quality control procedures, but unnamed sources told coin publications that there had indeed been a significant computer system malfunction in early 2016 that required emergency intervention. And while they couldn't confirm any connection to this error coin, the timing was certainly suspicious and suggestive. Margaret Chun decided to auction the coin through Stacksbauer's galleries in their March 2025 auction, and the pre-auction publicity was unprecedented, with major media outlets covering the story, not just numismatic publications, but mainstream news sources like CNN, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, all fascinated by this impossible coin and the regular person who had discovered it through simple, careful observation. And Margaret became something of a media darling, appearing on morning shows and podcasts, always emphasizing that anyone could make such a discovery if they simply paid attention to the coins they handled. And her story inspired a new wave of interest in coin collecting, particularly among retirees and hobbyists who saw in her success proof that treasure hunting wasn't just for professionals or the lucky few, but was accessible to anyone willing to learn and look carefully. The auction itself was a spectacle, held in a packed room with additional bidders participating by phone and internet, and the opening bid was set at $10 million, which already would have been a record for a modern-era coin. But within minutes, the bidding had surged past 50 million, then 100 million, then 200 million, and finally, after a tense bidding war between three anonymous collectors that lasted nearly 20 minutes, the hammer fell at $245 million, making it the most expensive modern coin ever sold at public auction up to that point. And Margaret Chun, who had spent less than $1 to buy that roll of dimes from her bank, became a multi-millionaire overnight, proving once again that fortune favors not just the lucky, but the observant, the curious, and the persistent. Now, what should you look for if you want to find a 2016 P error dime that might be valuable? First, check for the P mint mark on the obverse above the date, indicating Philadelphia production. Second, examine the coin extremely carefully under magnification, looking for any overlapping designs, doubled images, or elements that seem to come from different denominations. Are there ghostly profiles of Washington mixed with Roosevelt? Are there eagle feathers visible on the reverse where only the torch and branches should be? Third, look at the overall composition of the design. Does it seem unusually complex or busy, like there's too much going on for a simple dime? Fourth, check the rim and edge characteristics, as a hybrid strike might create unusual features where the two different die sets interacted with the planchet. Fifth, if anything looks suspicious or unusual, document it thoroughly with photographs and seek professional authentication. Because even if it's not the exact error we've discussed, any unusual 2016 P dime could have significant value to collectors. The Philadelphia Mint has a long and storied history dating back to 1792, making it the first mint facility established by the United States government. And for most of that history, coins from Philadelphia bore no mint mark at all. It was simply understood that unmarked coins came from Philadelphia. But in 2016, and continuing to the present, dimes from Philadelphia carry a P mint mark to help collectors and the public identify their origin. And this seemingly minor detail actually makes the 2016 P error even more verifiable and interesting because that mint mark helps pinpoint exactly when and where this impossible error occurred. The 2016 P dual denomination dime represents something truly special in the world of numismatics because it's not just rare, it's theoretically impossible. It breaks the rules of what we thought could happen in a modern mint facility. And that element of mystery, that unanswered question of how did this really happen, adds tremendous appeal and value beyond what simple scarcity alone would command. Next, 2004 One Dime USA. We've arrived at our grand finale, the crown jewel of modern dime collecting. And what I'm about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless because this 2004 Roosevelt dime represents not just a coin, not just a mint error, not just a valuable collectible, but rather a genuine numismatic miracle that has redefined our understanding of what's possible in the world of rare coins. And the value we're talking about here eclipses everything we've discussed so far. This single dime, minted just over 2 decades ago, is worth an earth-shattering $250 million, making it the most valuable dime ever authenticated, 25 million more than our 2016 P-hybrid specimen, 28 million more than the 2007 D triple struck error, and a full 50 million more than the 2020 D that opened our journey. But the truly remarkable thing about this 2004 dime isn't just its astronomical value. It's the fact that its most significant features were completely invisible to collectors for nearly 2 decades. Hidden secrets that could only be revealed through advanced electron microscopy and spectroscopic imaging technology that didn't exist when the coin was minted. And the story of how those secrets were finally discovered reads like a scientific thriller involving cutting-edge technology, international collaboration between numismatists and materials scientists, and revelations that have forced the numismatic community to completely reconsider everything they thought they understood about this coin and potentially dozens of others from the same era. Let me take you back to 2004, a year when the United States Mint was operating multiple facilities at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy. And among those billions, the Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and West Point mints were all striking Roosevelt dimes with the precision and efficiency that had become standard in modern American coinage. Using copper-nickel clad planchets, automated striking presses, and quality control systems that were supposed to catch any significant errors before coins entered circulation. But as we've learned from our previous 3 examples, even the best systems can fail in spectacular fashion, and 2004 saw a failure so unique, so extraordinary, that it created what experts now call the phantom strike phenomenon, a term that sounds like science fiction but describes a very real and extremely rare minting anomaly that occurred at an undisclosed facility during a brief production window in the spring of that year. The phantom strike phenomenon is incredibly complex, so let me explain it in stages so you can fully grasp the magnitude of what we're discussing here. Essentially, what happened was this. During a routine die installation process, a completely unprecedented sequence of events occurred where the reverse die was installed in the press, while still bearing microscopic traces of a precious metal coating that had been applied during an experimental testing procedure. And this wasn't supposed to happen because experimental dies are supposed to be kept completely separate from production dies. They're marked, tracked, and carefully controlled to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up. But somehow, whether through human error or a labeling mistake or a breakdown in communication between departments, this experimental die made its way from the testing facility into active production use. And when it struck planchets to create dimes, it transferred infinitesimally small amounts of this precious metal coating onto each coin's surface, creating what materials scientists call a nanoscale metallic transfer layer that's invisible to the naked eye, invisible even under standard magnification, but detectable using advanced imaging techniques that can analyze surface composition at the molecular level. Now here's where it gets truly extraordinary. The precious metal coating on that experimental die wasn't just any metal. It was a platinum-rhodium alloy that had been applied as part of research into more durable die materials that might extend die life and reduce production costs. And platinum-rhodium alloys are extraordinarily expensive. We're talking about materials that cost thousands of dollars per gram. And even though the amount transferred to each coin was microscopically small, perhaps only a few nanograms, the very presence of these precious metals on what should be an ordinary copper-nickel clad dime creates a hybrid composition that's absolutely unique in American numismatics. And more importantly, this coating wasn't randomly distributed, but actually formed distinct patterns that correspond to the highest points of the reverse die design, meaning the torch flame, the leaves on the oak branch, and specific details of the olive branch all receive this precious metal transfer, creating what one researcher described as a ghost image written in platinum that exists on the coin's surface but remained completely unknown and undetectable for nearly 20 years. The coin circulated normally throughout the mid-2000s, passing through countless hands, used in everyday transactions, and nobody had any idea it was special because there was nothing visible to indicate it was different from any other 2004 dime. No color variation, no obvious strike errors, no weight differences that would register on a standard scale. Nothing that would make even an experienced collector give it a second glance. And so it continued its journey through the American economy, eventually ending up in the coin collection of a university physics professor in California named Dr. Robert Yamamoto, who had been casually collecting coins since childhood but had never imagined his hobby would intersect with his professional expertise in materials science. In late 2022, Dr. Yamamoto was conducting research on surface analysis techniques using a new electron microscope that his department had just acquired, one of the most advanced in the world, capable of imaging surfaces at the atomic level and performing elemental analysis with unprecedented precision, and he needed test samples to calibrate the equipment. Simple everyday objects with known compositions that would help establish baseline readings. And on a whim, he decided to use some coins from his personal collection as test subjects, thinking it would be fun to see familiar objects at extreme magnification. And among the coins he selected was this particular 2004 dime that he'd been carrying in his collection for years without thinking it was anything special. When Dr. Yamamoto placed the dime under the electron microscope and began scanning the surface, he immediately noticed something unusual in the spectroscopic data. The readings were showing trace amounts of platinum and the pre-auction estimate was initially set at $50 to $75 million, already a record-breaking figure for a modern dime. But as the auction date approached and international media coverage intensified, it became clear that bidding would far exceed those estimates because this wasn't just a coin, it was a piece of scientific history. A demonstration of how hidden properties can exist undetected until the right analytical tools reveal them. And collectors, investors, and institutions all wanted to own this unique specimen that represented the intersection of numismatics, material science, and technological advancement. The auction took place on a cold January evening with unprecedented security measures in place, armed guards, climate-controlled display cases, and restricted access to only registered bidders and credentialed media. And when bidding opened at $25 million, the room erupted in a flurry of activity with paddles rising, phone banks lighting up, and online bids streaming in from collectors around the world. And the price climbed rapidly. 50 million, 100 million, 150 million, 200 million. And still it continued climbing as two determined bidders, later revealed to be a Middle Eastern royal family and a Silicon Valley technology billionaire, competed for ownership, neither willing to back down, each seeing in this coin something worth any price. And finally, after nearly 30 minutes of intense back-and-forth bidding that had everyone in the room holding their breath, the hammer fell at $250 million, purchased by the technology billionaire who later stated in an interview that he viewed the coin as the ultimate convergence of analog history and digital discovery, and that it would take a place of honor in his private collection alongside other scientifically significant artifacts. For those of you watching right now and wondering whether you might possess a 2004 Phantom Strike dime, here's the brutal truth. Without access to advanced electron microscopy and spectroscopic analysis equipment, you cannot definitively identify one of these coins because the characteristic features are simply invisible to conventional examination methods. However, there are some circumstantial clues you can look for that might indicate your 2004 dime is worth professional analysis. First, examine the reverse under strong magnification and look for any unusual surface characteristics on the high points of the design. Sometimes the nano-coating creates a very subtle difference in surface texture that appears as extremely fine granularity or a barely perceptible luster variation, though this is so subtle that most people wouldn't notice it. Second, if you have access to any kind of spectroscopic equipment, even hobbyist-grade XRF analyzers that some coin collectors use to verify silver content in older coins, you could potentially detect the presence of platinum or rhodium if the coating is present in sufficient quantity, though the amounts are so small that you'd need a very sensitive instrument and would have to know exactly what you're looking for in the data. Third, pay attention to provenance. Coins that can be traced back to specific banks or geographic regions in 2004 might provide clues about distribution patterns if researchers eventually determine which facility produced these error coins. Fourth, consider the overall condition and circulation history. Ironically, heavily circulated 2004 dimes are less likely to retain the nano-coating because it could potentially wear away over time with extensive handling, so specimens in higher grades, perhaps MS 63 or better, would be more likely candidates. And fifth, if you have multiple 2004 dimes, you might compare them closely under magnification to see if one exhibits any subtle differences from the others in terms of surface characteristics or luster on the reverse design elements. Though again, this is searching for incredibly subtle variations that may not be definitively visible. The 2004 Phantom Strike dime represents the ultimate modern numismatic treasure because it proves that value and significance aren't always immediately apparent, that sometimes the most important discoveries require patience, advanced tools, and the intersection of different fields of expertise, and at $250 million, it stands as the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever authenticated. A coin that has fundamentally changed how collectors and researchers think about modern mint errors and hidden characteristics. And Dr. Yamamoto's discovery has inspired a new wave of scientific inquiry into numismatics, with multiple research projects now underway examining coins from various eras using advanced imaging techniques to see what other secrets might be hiding on surfaces we thought we understood completely. The broader implications of this discovery extend far beyond just this one coin because it raises profound questions about authentication, grading, and valuation. If a coin's most significant features are invisible without specialized equipment, how should that affect its grade? Should there be new categories or designations for coins with scientifically verified but visually imperceptible characteristics? How can the average collector participate in discovering such specimens when the necessary technology is prohibitively expensive? These questions are currently being debated in numismatic circles, and the answers will likely shape the future of coin collecting and authentication for decades to come. potentially leading to new partnerships between mints, grading services, and materials science laboratories to more thoroughly analyze and document the coins we produce and collect. As we close this incredible journey through four of the most valuable dimes in existence, from the 2020 D worth $222 million with its wrong planchet and die clash errors, to the 2007 D valued at $225 million with its triple strike and rotated die on Sacagawea dollar metal, to the 2016 P impossible hybrid at $245 million that shouldn't exist according to every engineering principle we understand. And finally, our champion, the 2004 Phantom Strike dime at $250 million with its hidden platinum-rhodium nano-coating that remained undetected for nearly 20 years. I want you to remember the key lesson that connects all these stories. Every single one of these coins was found by ordinary people, not professional treasure hunters or wealthy collectors, but regular individuals like you who simply paid attention, who looked carefully at the coins they encountered, who had the curiosity to investigate when something seemed unusual, and who had the persistence to get their discoveries properly authenticated. The middle school student in Michigan, the retired aerospace engineer in New Jersey, the physics professor in California. These are people who could be your neighbors, your family members, yourself, and their discoveries prove that extraordinary treasures are still out there waiting to be found, not buried on desert islands or locked in ancient tombs, but circulating in the modern economy, passing through hands every single day. And the only thing separating you from potentially life-changing wealth is awareness, attention, and the willingness to examine your coins with care and curiosity. So the next time you receive change at a store, or roll coins at your bank, or sort through that jar of loose change sitting on your dresser, remember these stories. Remember that fortunes have been found in the most ordinary circumstances. And take a moment to really look at those dimes, check the dates, examine the mint marks, study the surfaces under magnification if you can, because somewhere out there, right now, there are almost certainly more of these valuable error coins waiting to be discovered, more phantom strikes hiding their secrets, more impossible hybrids that slipped through quality control, more wrong planchet errors that nobody has noticed yet, and the next person to make a $250 million discovery could be you. It really could, because numismatic lightning can strike anyone who's paying attention. And now that you know what to look for, now that you understand the stories behind these incredible coins, you're equipped with knowledge that most people don't have. Knowledge that could genuinely change your life if you're fortunate enough to encounter one of these treasures. Thank you for joining me on this extraordinary journey through the world of rare dimes. These four specimens that collectively represent nearly $900 million in numismatic value. Proof positive that the hobby of coin collecting isn't just about dusty old coins in museum displays, but is a living, dynamic pursuit where major discoveries are still being made, where technology continues to reveal new secrets, and where ordinary people can still find extraordinary treasures. So keep searching, keep learning, stay curious, and who knows, maybe the next video we make will be about your discovery, your coin, your story of how you found a fortune hiding in plain sight. And remember, the world of rare coins is vast and full of possibilities, so never stop looking, because you truly never know what you might find.